So welcome to this Rokoko webinar. I'm Sam Lazarus, and I'm joined by Alain Bui today, and we are going to be doing a little holiday VFX bake-off, making motion capture, sending it into Blender for retargeting it, and then sending it in Houdini and getting into some mischief and just playing around and seeing what we can do with Alain, who is our is generous enough to be here. And if you know anything about Alain, you know that he is deep into Houdini world and is going to be tolerating all of my Houdini questions for this entire thing. And we will be sending out this webinar in an email for you to review at a later date with all of Alain's socials and everything as well, because I recommend going to go check out all of his stuff because he's been able to create some really crazy stuff as a solo creator using Houdini. So super cool. Okay, before we get into our run of show, we have an indie bundle right now. Go check it out, 40% off. For this webinar, all attendees, VFX mess at checkout will get you 5% off at the Rokoko store, including bundles. So go use the code. We're also giving away red beanies with the first 5 orders, I believe now. So that's huzzah, we need more red beanies in the world. And then if you see anything that you like or had more questions about during this webinar, book a free demo. It's completely free. It's a live human being. You can ask them about your workflow questions, whether it comes to Rokoko and how it works within what you've got going on. So I highly encourage you to book a free demo if you have any questions after this. Okay, so what are we doing today? So we are jumping right in. I'm going to throw on a suit, which I've got behind me, and we're going to start making some motion capture. We're going to do a live demo of Rokoko tools. We're going to record something. I'm going to show you kind of how our system works, so you get a baseline of how Rokoko works. But Alan's going to be there the whole time and kind of directing me when we get to actually recording, because after we record something, I'm going to send it over to Alan over Discord. He's going to retarget it into Blender, show us his rough workflow for retargeting, which is an essential part of motion capture, and then bring it into Houdini, and we'll have some fun and play around with Vellum or whatever it is. And yeah, so it should be great. We are also going to be doing some raffles during this webinar, giving away some smart gloves and some Studio Pro subscriptions and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, when people were trickling in, if you have any questions, put them down in the Q&A button down below. And yeah, there you go. So thank you everyone for coming, and I'm going to start the next poll, and then let's jump into a suit, baby, and get going. Okay, well, so normally I do this whole spiel, but today we're really just going to jump into the suit. Before we do, though, I will just kind of run through what we are going to be working with. I'm going to be putting on a Smart Suit Pro 2. That's an inertial motion capture suit. It's kind of our flagship. We're going to be using smart gloves with this to get some hand and finger data. We might look at some facial motion capture stuff. Alan, you've done a bunch of work with facial motion capture, so that'd be interesting to hear about from you. We also have an EMF-based motion capture tool, which we're not going to be talking about today. And then we have an AI tool as well. So that we make a bunch of motion capture stuff if you don't know who we are at Rokoko. And our goal is always easy and high quality. And those are kind of the two, and then high fidelity. Those are the 3 things that we focus on at Rokoko. Okay, so without further ado, I'm actually going to start a timer on this, and we'll see what we can create in the next however long. So I'm going to jump into a suit. Yeah. And I like to show this process from start to finish. Alan, I know you know what's going on already, but for some people who haven't seen how all this works, I like to show getting in the suit like from 0 to recording motion capture to show how easy that process is. So actually, okay, 30 seconds on the clock. Let's see how fast I can kind of just get in and get turned on. As I said before, this is an inertial motion capture suit. So that means that there's just sensors. Yeah, got the legs on without falling over. There's sensors that are distributed throughout the suit. Those sensors talk to your computer over Wi-Fi. The whole thing runs off of a generic battery pack, so you don't need to charge the suit, which is really nice because you never run into the issue where you forgot to charge your suit and then your screwed on a production day. And you can also remove all the sensors from the suit. So if you share the suit on a team or something like that, you can actually remove the sensors, put them in a different sized suit, or you can wash the suit, which if you're doing a bunch of mocap and you're getting super sweaty, you might want to wash the suit every once in a while. So that is nice as well. Okay, so that took about a minute, according to the clock, to throw the suit on. And it's just really great to be able to like have your mocap idea and then have very little friction to actually going and recording that mocap and just getting started, right? If I'm in the middle of a project and I realize I need some mocap for an NPC in the background that I forgot to get, it's not like a whole production. I don't need to set up 8 cameras to record that mocap, right? I can just throw on a suit and then a minute and a half later, you can be actually recording. So hold on, I will not infinite screen this. Let me move some of these guys before I make myself smaller. But here we are. And actually at this point, Alan, I'm going to turn off your video. But you're still there on audio. Check, check. You still here?
Yep.
Still
here.
Gotcha. Okay, nice. Okay. So there we go. Suit on, battery plugged in. Yeah, took about a minute and a half for me to get everything up and running. And so super, super easy, very little friction, right? And that's really important as a solo operator, because oftentimes the people that we are kind of focusing on are people who are working at home, you know, in their home office. They don't have a studio space and they need to be able to do this all by themselves quickly and easily. So there you go. So, you know, plugged in my suit, it connected with my computer over Wi-Fi. I've used this suit with this computer before, so it's all already set up, right? I just needed to turn on the suit. And then I'll do a 3-second calibration pose. We call it a straight pose, basically just my arms down at my side. And that's it. Boom. We can now create motion capture. So I always feel like it's a little underwhelming when I do this because it is very quick. And it all just kind of seems to work usually, you know? But that is the goal for it to be underwhelming, right? We don't want it to be a big production. We want you to just be able to jump into a suit and start playing around and having fun, right? And enjoying the mocap process, which is really, you know, it is a unique process in CG that we get to actually get up from our chairs and like have fun. So I'm just going to do a basic little recording, and then Alan, we'll start actually recording stuff and like talking about what we want to do for in Houdini. But first, let me just do a quick recording just to show you how this works. So I'm gonna hit record. Okay, yep. Yeah. I'll do some sitting. People are always interested in sitting. Boom. Okay. And you could see that there was some wonkiness there as I was kind of jumping and moving around. And that is why I wanted to record something to show you what is actually happening on the back end. So one thing that's great about Rokoko, obviously, is that this is all real time, right? This is all happening. You know, there's like 1 to 3 milliseconds of lag. It's all super fast in real time, which means we can stream this out to Unreal Engine or something for virtual production or to be a VTuber or something like that. But what it also means is that because this is real time, you're not getting the benefits of some of our processing for recorded clips. So to get like the best Rokoko quality, we really are intended to work with recorded clips to get that final polish, especially when it comes to like moving around. And that's because the way that Rokoko works is that we need to be able to tell when your feet are in contact with the ground. And so you can see right here when I was doing my little jump, this was a little bit weird. And if we zoom down here, you can see these circles. When these circles are filled in, it means that Rokoko Studio thinks my foot is on the ground. So here I'm jumping, doing a jump, and right here, Rokoko Studio says, nope, your foot is still on the ground. So let's remove that clip. And there we get our jump. And we get another little jump right here. And there we go. finalize post-process. And so this kind of 30 seconds of cleanup to just quickly go through and make sure that all the foot contacts look good. That is kind of a typical part of the Rokoko workflow. It's an expected part of the Rokoko workflow, and it's fine, right? It's super easy. And beyond that, you know, there are a bunch of different tools now to do mocap editing, whether it's in Unreal Engine or Blender or whatever it is. Our goal with all of this process is to get you, you know, 90 to 95% of the way there. And then when you get it onto your character in the program, that's generally when you take it to that final 100%. So you do 30 seconds of cleanup in Rokoko Studio, and then you're ready to export it out and just get moving. Another thing I'll do before we jump in and actually record a clip for what we're doing here today with Alan is we can, if we go and just grab a character. So this is a character from Mixamo. You can take Mixamo characters, you can take Unreal characters, and you can retarget them in Rokoko Studio, which is kind of cool. It just gives you that visual feedback, especially if you're in real time, you know, and you have, say, an oddly sized character. You can actually go in, and it just gives you an idea of maybe where to hold your arms. If you have a weapon or something you're holding, it just gives you a little bit of an idea of where those limbs should be placed. And Alan, is this a feature that you have ever used, this retargeting in Rokoko Studio?
No, I've actually never used it, but now that I'm watching it and seeing that you could see real-time feedback, I might start because I didn't know you could see it real time.
Yeah, you can see it real time. I mean, it's super cool. You can actually do the same thing for facial capture as well. If you have a character that's rigged for facial capture, it'll do that real
Oh,
time as well. I think it's, and you can export out the mocap on this character. I think it is really good for previs and not like, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm always curious about how people use this tool. If they do the retargeting in here or if it's just for previs, because you know you'll show us in Blender what you do for retargeting, and usually there's a little bit more that you want to do. So I don't know. It's a really cool thing, and you can also even let's actually go look at this. We can adjust our arms, do all that sort of stuff, shoulders. So really cool little feature in here that you can do. And yeah, other things that I just want to mention, we have all of our live streaming. We have a new live streaming workflow for Unreal Engine that's coming out soon. But you can live stream to Blender or iClone or Maya or Cinema 4D or whatever it is. You can live stream out. And of course, when you're exporting out your mocap, we have a bunch of different file formats that work with all the different main 3D programs. So, okay, how are we doing on time here? We're doing pretty good. I think that we're ready to kind of let's make some mocap for actually for Houdini. So let's create something. Okay. So Alan, what I was thinking, and we can do a couple different things, but what I was thinking is like I sent Alan this character that is kind of an alien-ish type guy. And I was thinking like maybe the character looks up and sees the hero character or whatever and like starts charging them and then gets blasted and we MPM blast them. Like could we do that? Could we like
yeah, we could do that.
we could particle blast the alien like part of
Like blast
its
off an
arm away or
arm.
something?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then also I don't know if there's any ideas that you have but of things that you wanted to mess around with.
If you wanted to do some vellum stuff, maybe someone reaching out for something and then they touch like the cursed object and their body starts becoming kind of like rubbery or I don't
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
cloth as it
I like
spreads
it.
across their body. We could do something like that
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that one first. Okay. Let's do that one first, and then we'll do the alien. Okay. Here we go. I don't know. Something like that. Reaching out. touching some sort of cursed thing. And then obviously the physics will take over at that point.
Yeah,
And the arm
that
will
should
just
totally
go
work.
limp. And then I just tried to get as much torso movement in so the arms would be flapping around.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a Vellum one. Let's rename it. Let's call it Vellum 01. Okay. Try my alien acting, which is gonna get really extreme. I apologize, everyone. This is gonna be grade A alien roar acting here. Okay, let's play that back. Turn to camera. And yeah, get, kind of charge forward. Looks like we just need to do a quick little fix right here. Just need to add a little clip. Looks okay. I don't know. You could get blasted like right there. Boom. Big hole in the
Yeah.
chest or something. Or
No, I
like
think
right
that
there, he gets
works.
hit in the shoulder.
That works for me.
That works for you. Okay. Here, let's do one more and we'll do like a gun fight and maybe the arm gets hit either with Vellum or with MPM or something. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Something like that. I don't know. Looking pretty good. Okay, good enough. I think that we got enough to kind of get in there and see what's what. Okay, so let's call this MPM alien. MPM, we'll just call it MPM 01. Keep it clean. We'll call this Vellum 02. And then you know what? Maybe I'll just do like a magic. Either it could be Vellum, it could be MPM, like a dissolving. I'm dissolving, and a curse is eating me up from the inside, or something like that kind of thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
One thing you learn about motion capture pretty quickly is you can feel a little bit silly when you're doing this, and then you realize that your mailman has been watching you act through the window. Call this MPM 02. Okay, so these are pretty good. So there we go. Check how much time it's been. So 15 minutes, and I've been jabbering away, but in that time we've created, 4 good clips, which we can move on with. And I think that it's something to be really highlighted is how quickly you can just get in, create mocap, like iterate and keep moving, right? The whole idea with motion capture is to cut out this friction that is hand animating and hand keying, which is so difficult to do, which is such a specific, kind of talent. And to get back into Blender, get back into Unreal, right? We don't want to spend any time in this program. We want to get into our final program as quickly as possible. And so hopefully this has been a good demonstration of, again, within 15 minutes, we have 4 clips that are custom mocap takes, which are just basically done after retargeting. Okay, so Alan, let's bring you back in and I will export these out and we're going to, okay, where is okay, here it is. So Alan, I think I have to ask you to start your video. So I will ask to start video. And then I'm going to export these out at 24 FPS, right?
Yeah, 24. Just to save us some
Okay.
sim time, you know?
Yeah. I know. Yeah. And we just want a default Newton, right? That's what you use for your workflow?
Yeah, default.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We have um, all these different types of skeleton options for exporting. So we're just going to use the Rokoko default though. We're going to include a mesh. So this is going to have the mesh that you see right here. And yeah, we can choose our FPS. We're going with 24. And let me just put this in the right place. Alain Bui, tutorial, mocap 2, export 4 clips. And we have 4 mocap clips ready to go. Okay, so now I will send this to you over Discord, and we're gonna jump into Blender. Is that right? So maybe you can talk a
Yeah.
little bit about, and even while I'm doing this, Alan, like a introduction, so maybe you can just go through who you are and what you do, and kind of how your relationship got started with VFX, just like briefly.
Yeah, so I mean, I do VFX mostly on social media. I started when COVID started. I started learning because I saw people doing really cool stuff in 3D. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And, I kept wanting to figure out how to do more. And then I started learning Houdini and all this other stuff. And yeah, and now I'm here, I guess.
And you started with Blender, right?
I started with Cinema 4D,
Oh, you
actually.
started
And then,
right. You and me are like the exact same, right? Yeah, you started
yeah,
with cinema.
yeah, I
Yeah,
started with Cinema 4D and then I used it for like a few days. And I realized that it made you pay for everything, like the render, the program itself. And then after that, I just ended up switching to Blender.
yeah, I know, I know, I know. It's so sad, so sad. Oh, I'm gonna
Okay.
switch. It's just a matter of time, man. But that is true. I mean, it's so interesting because cinema. I am like part of why I don't switch. Is I have paid for a lot of things. You pay for your plugins, you pay for cinema itself. There's such a sunk cost fallacy, with cinema. You just I've like it's so much knowledge about it. It's so hard to switch.
All right. It looks like I have all the files downloaded.
Nice. Let's do it. Let's share a screen and yeah, remember to check that little optimize button. You know what? Actually, as we get started, I'm gonna do our first raffle. And so hold on. This is going to be for 2 Studio Pro subscriptions. So excuse me if I butcher your names, but drum roll, please. Kelvin Parker and Tariano Edgar. Congratulations, you two. You guys are getting some Studio Pro subscriptions, which has access to our AI tool as well. So we will get in touch with you guys. And we have 2 more raffles. We're giving away some smart gloves, and we're giving away some head rigs. So yes, I love the little chat. It's always like congratulations, good vibes, everyone happy that somebody won. Yes, but congratulations to you two, and we'll do 2 more raffles as we keep going here. Okay, but how's Blender going, or is it all crashing, or no? Okay,
Uh,
no, it's not.
no.
Cute background, digging it.
Yeah. All right, cool. So you can see my screen?
Yes,
Okay. Good.
yes. Chat, let us know if there are any issues, but it should be working. The screen capturing is working, but now it's really up to Blender
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Can you see
I
this?
can.
All right, cool. All right. So this is the character you sent me. And all I did was I consolidated the head texture and the body texture just into one texture so
Okay.
that it just saves me time texturing if I were after simulation, if I were to bring it back into Blender.
Yeah. So that was just because in Houdini, and maybe you can talk a little bit about prep. So again, we are talking about a Houdini workflow, but a Houdini workflow that has kind of been you've tweaked it such that it works for, moving quickly and just like pumping stuff out. And so what can you talk about when you're preparing characters, what goes into like thinking about the rest of that process? Because I know for Houdini, when it comes to all those dynamics, so many things about how the model is prepared or the importing between Blender, right? There's a bunch of stuff. So yeah, what do you think about before getting started on this when it comes to the character?
Yeah, so usually, I mean, the main thing is that you want the characters to be airtight, which means they have no holes in them. So that always messes up with simulations. Because a lot of times simulations will use VDBs to do the simulation, and if you have holes in them, then it can't do a good VDB or get a good VDB from it. So that's like the main thing. And then for me, I usually consolidate. If it has multiple textures, I usually consolidate it into one big texture, just because that's easier for me instead of having to go back and texture every part of it. Because from what I understand, Alembics can't carry like the material path over. So when I
Yeah.
export it from Houdini back into Blender, then I would have to manually go and select all the body
Yeah.
parts or whatever and like
I know that
manually re-add the textures.
you can do selections with Alembic materials, but I think it is super finicky and then also super different. Like it's just a mess, right? So if it's all can be one texture, all the better, right? Which there are so many
Yeah,
for oftentimes for NPC, if you're doing I was on your Instagram and there's the stormtroopers being bowled over by the force boulder. Like
yeah,
if it's a crowd, it doesn't need eight different textures, right? It just needs
yeah,
it's in
yeah,
motion. Like it's fine.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just for what I do, it just makes it a little bit easier. I know it's not because you do lose resolution and stuff when you do that. So it's not the best way, but just for what I do, I prefer it that
Yeah.
way just because it makes it a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna import. Which one do you want me to start with? Should I start with
Let's
NPM or Vellum?
Which one do you think will work more reliably?
I mean, I think either of them should work fine.
Let's do NPM. I want to see the NPM.
Okay, I'll just go with the first one. Uh, and for Blender, you always have to check automatic bone orientation, or else it imports the FBX all weird.
Really wonky, right? All the skeleton bones are like in different directions and
Yeah. And then I always make sure that the character is relatively the correct scale that I want it to be. And usually I just use the Blender human rig because that's like the height. I think it's like the height of a 6 foot person. So then I
right.
usually just scale my character down to roughly what I think they would be. So probably this guy would probably be pretty big, maybe like here. Like
Wow.
that.
Okay, so he was huge.
Yeah,
Interesting. Huh. Yeah.
yeah,
So many intricacies when it comes to because just getting stuff out of Blender or into Blender or into Houdini or out of Houdini in different formats and different scales, right? Is
yeah,
always
yeah.
such a process. Yeah.
For simulations, you always want it to be the correct scale. Or
Right.
else, if they're like huge, then the simulation moves really slow, as if they were like 100 foot tall, 100
Right.
feet tall, or whatever.
Right.
All right. And then I use Auto Rig Pro to retarget in Blender. So it's just over here on the right. And I love this add-on. I use it to rig characters. I use it to retarget characters. And
Yeah.
all you do is you select the source armature. It's pretty similar to how Rokoko's add-on does it actually.
Hmm.
But yeah, you select the source armature and then the one you want to retarget it to, so the target armature. And then you click auto scale and it'll like get the scale of the two armatures relatively correct. And then you click build boneless, but a lot of times you have to go in and individually
Manually. Yeah.
figure it out. But if you use the same armature often, like I use the Auto Rig Pro one super often, so I already have the mapping layout saved. But after you fill in all the bones, then you could just go to export and you could export out that mapping preset. And then you could reuse it. You could just import it every time you're retargeting from Rokoko to the same armature. So I already have
That's
that one saved. So I just click import and then I go into my Rokoko folder, and then it should be this one. And then see, it automatically fills out all the bone, and then you're pretty much good to go. And then after that, you just have to redefine the rest pose. And I know in the older Rokoko videos that I watch, you would like manually adjust
Yeah.
the rest pose to match with the character. But AutoRig Pro kind of automates it. So then you just click redefine rest pose, and you could click which bones you want to match up to the target armature. So I'm just going to select
Wow.
everything. Yeah. And then you just click copy selected bone rotation, and then it matches it.
Oh, so awesome. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So then I'll just click apply, and then it's pretty much ready to be retargeted. So I'm just going to click retarget. And let's see.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Oh, it looks great. Fantastic.
yeah. So pretty good. And usually for characters, the arms are kind of really close
Yeah.
together. So
Yeah.
then with AutoRig Pro, you could go into interactive tweaks. And if you click the bone you want to tweak,
So
it's
just the
usually
upper
the
arm
arm.
or something?
Yeah, and then you could just change the rotation and have them spaced out a little bit more. So I'll usually do that for the right arm and the left arm, just to make sure there's no intersections or minimize as many intersections as we can,
Right.
especially for
Right.
Vellum.
Right. Another, yeah, Houdini specific. I mean, good for important for many things. You don't want clipping, but for dynamic simulation, super important.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
mean that's looking pretty good.
and this was mocap you got from like this is from a Hollywood actor who's really good at aliens.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah. I
Oh
mean,
no, this is me. So amazing.
yeah.
It does
So
look
I
good though on
mean,
him. He doesn't look he looks I mean, you can the shoulders look
yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm just checking to see if there's any intersections
Yeah.
that I would need to fix. But since we're
So
doing
you
MPM anyways, then it's not like a huge deal.
but you do a pretty you really do not want intersections. So you treat this part of the process with a lot of respect in terms of going in and
Yeah.
just being sure that you're like do you even let hands get close to clipping with the body or do you really try to like make sure
It
there's
depends on what I'm doing. If
okay.
I'm using like a mocap character and putting clothes onto them that would need to be like simulated, then I really go in and tweak to make sure that there are no intersections,
Hmm.
especially for things like clothes, because that's
Right.
really easy to get messed up along the way, especially if it's a long animation. But for something like this, then it doesn't matter that much.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, for something like MPM. But anyways, I'm gonna delete the first frame since it's the T pose. I think I'm gonna start it.
And if you need to do more intense mocap editing, what do you
Mhm.
how do you do that process?
Yeah, so let me just save this real quick before I start tweaking it. Yeah, so then if I wanted to tweak it, I can go into, let's see, the dope sheet, and then I go into
Hmm.
the action editor, and then I could push down this animation layer, and then I
And
can
then
create a
right,
new,
okay.
yeah, and then I create a new one. And then from there, if you go into the nonlinear animation, you just make sure that the new animation layer that you created, if you go here, it says replace. If you set it to combine, then when you start making new keyframes, then you can kind of edit it. So let's say I wanted the arm to go more out in this section here. I'll just create a
Yeah.
keyframe before and a keyframe at the end. And then I'll go in the middle, have this one go out here. And then, yeah, see, during this part, the arm will go out there,
Nice.
and then you could just tweak it all like that.
And it's non-destructive and yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. So clean, such a great workflow and so yeah. So I think actually there and a little shout out to CG Dive who just put out a tutorial on AutoRig Pro and Rokoko mocap specifically that's covering some of this stuff. So I think it people are curious about this too and they want to know more. That's a good spot to check. Um
Yeah, Auto
Okay.
Rig Pro is great. I love it.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
maintained, so new versions, it's updated
yeah,
automatically and it's paid, but it's so worth it. It's one of those Blender things that are like a must have, I think. Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Okay, so
And-
we got it on
mhm.
and we have control rigs on it. We got all this weird stuff. What is going into Houdini? Is it an Alembic?
Yeah, so just straight
Okay.
Alembic. So you can even bring in an FBX if you want to keep like the armature and everything.
Yeah.
But for this, usually I just use Alembic because it's a lot faster. There's a
Yeah.
lot, yeah, but it depends on what you're doing. So I'm just gonna export it as an Alembic.
Right. If you were doing like crowd or something, for instance, you might want to keep the bones.
Yeah, and then yeah, so it's done exporting the Alembic, and then we'll hop into Houdini,
Nice. Okay.
make his eyes
And
explode.
yes, yeah. And so this is Houdini Indie, and which is also really great just because Houdini has pricing options which are reasonable now and are
Mhm.
actually, you can actually afford. For anyone who thought Indie or Houdini was completely outside of their price range. Still expensive-ish. It's I mean, for
It's
CG
yeah,
it's
it's like
ish.
what,
For
300
CG
for
it's
the
super
year?
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, 300 for the year, I think it is.
Yeah. Which
Which
is
I
really
mean,
good for CG.
that's kind of just yeah, that's a pretty
It's
good
very
price.
reasonable, I think. And I mean, for you get everything with it. And I mean, and then if anyone just wants to play with this, you can always use Houdini Apprentice, which is the full
Hmm.
program, which is crazy. You just can't export Alembics or FBXs, I think, or anything. I don't think you can export anything. You can only render at 720, but it's amazing. So cool that it's free. You can learn everything about Houdini, the full program.
Yeah, and it's like the industry standard, for simulation. So you're getting
Yeah,
that for 300, $400 a year.
yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Are you able to see the Houdini screen?
Yes, I got the Houdini
Okay,
screen. Do you keep
cool.
four windows open normally?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's your
I like
setup.
having full windows.
Cool.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so first thing I do is I just set the project, and I created one recently for just the Rokoko live stream. So I'm just gonna set that as the project, and then I'm just gonna save it. And then I make sure the FPS is right and the frame range is right.
Right. Little prep, make
Typically,
sure everything is working.
yeah. All right, and after that, we could just bring in the Alembic.
And you were just saying before we were getting started that you don't use shelf tools, which is what you shouldn't use shelf tools, really. But you build
Yeah, I
everything from
usually,
scratch.
yeah, I usually don't use the shelf tools. I think the only thing I use the shelf tools for
Like ground
are,
plane.
no, not even the ground plane,
Huh.
are for hair stuff, like grooming
Huh.
stuff. Because I'm
Huh.
still pretty bad at grooming, so then I still use the shelf tools for that.
God, grooming. Didn't even think about hair.
Yeah. All right,
Oh.
so I'm just gonna find the Alembic.
And does it normally come in the right size?
Did, did I export it to the right place?
Oh, maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't leave.
Yeah, it usually comes in the right size. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Oh, okay. I export it into the wrong folder.
It's
I have to
always
do it again.
it's always something like that.
Okay, now it should be there. Here it is.
Blender exports are so fast too that sometimes I feel like it doesn't actually like
Okay.
I'm like, did it do anything? Nothing happened.
All right, so it's in here. We'll just check the animation. Cool. Sometimes if you want to check the scaling is correct, you could just bring in like their test geometry, which is Atami, and then
Okay, yeah,
that's like the human size. So then it's
right.
correct.
So this
And
is
then
the
he's
same thing
supposed to be a
that
little bit bigger. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's usually I feel like all those default are 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then I'll just convert it so that we could get it into usable geometry. And then from
Okay.
here, we'll get started with the NPM solver. So I
Converting
use
it
it,
took it from the alembic into polygons.
yeah,
Yeah.
to just like usable geometry. Because I believe it comes in, let's see, it comes in as a packed alembic, and then you have to pretty much unpack it to be usable.
Okay.
All
Right.
right, so
Cool.
we want the arm here to be blasted off. Okay. So
Oh man, I'm so pumped.
yeah, so NPM, you just saw it has like 3 inputs. So first you just get the NPM solver, and then it has 3 inputs: the source, the colliders, and the container. And then you always want the container first. And that's just pretty much defining like the resolution of the simulation, where you want the boundary of where you want the simulation to happen.
Right.
Then and then from there you create an NPM source, and that's where your geometry goes into. And then you can either connect the container directly into this blue one here, or you could just go up to the container and just drag and drop the NPM container to there. And then you put that into the source.
Hmm.
And then it should show up there.
Wow. Okay. So now it's converted it to the NPM particles.
Yeah.
The motion. What is it called again? What is it? Hold on.
Material points method, I
Material
think it
point
was.
method. Material point method. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's super cool. It has a lot of presets that you can use.
Oh, cool. Look at that. So
Yeah,
what
so it
happens if
has
you just
like,
hit play? It'll just fall to
yeah,
the
so
ground.
then it'll just simulate what it thinks snow should be like. So we'll just click play. It takes a while at the beginning, since I think it's preparing, but once it gets going, you know,
Wow, look at that. Oh,
and it's
God, I
like
love
super
dynamics.
fast. Like, yeah, it's crazy fast. I love it.
Wow.
And we'll up the resolution just a little bit. Let's see. So it's a little bit more defined. You can see things a little bit better. But yeah,
And
it's
so
awesome.
when it so okay, and so then well, I'll just let you keep going, but I'm curious about how the texture is gonna work with this thing and how that all.
Yeah. So the cool thing about the NPM is you can transfer the UV attributes directly from the
Wow.
original geometry. You just go to attributes, transfer here, and then it has all of them selected except for the shop material path. But that should transfer the UVs over. So I think if we check the NPM solver and see what's coming in, yeah, so it has the UV. You can see the UV mapping here.
Wow, amazing. So
Yeah,
then when
so
you
it makes it super easy.
and
Hmm.
you'll export an alembic out of
Hmm.
Houdini, and then you'll
Yeah,
put the material just right on top of it in Blender again.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And since this one is animated, you have to go into the NPM source and you go into pin constraints, and that kind
Okay,
of
so this
pins like the particles so that they're not moving.
every
So if I were,
frame, right?
yeah, so if I were
Yeah.
just to do that, then it should just be perfectly static. Yeah, so nothing's happening. And if you want it to follow the animation, you have to click enable animation and use the input animation. And then
Oh.
now it should be moving like the original.
And so it's moving, and is it activated at this point, or is it waiting to be like is it just is it following points, but they I don't know, what am I trying to ask? I guess is it
Yeah.
dynamic at
So
this point?
uh, it's waiting to be activated, I guess. So right
Okay.
now the attribute is the pin to animation, I think it is. And because that's set to 1, it's following the original animation. But then you could create groups, which I'll do in a second here, and then have that activate over time, and the attribute goes from 1 to 0, and that will activate whatever area you want. So
Okay. Interesting. So that will be how we'll activate it for the.
yeah. So I'm just not gonna worry too much about this beginning part, and I'm probably just gonna start the simulation maybe around, so his arm gets hit here.
Yeah, like right.
Yeah,
Take
so maybe I'll
everything
just
from the
start it
shoulder.
around like 180. And I'll just focus on that for now. Okay. So give it a second.
Okay, because it needs to calculate from 0 no matter, even if you're...
I think so. Oh yeah, it's because I have to set it here to 180 and then cool. All right, so how do we activate it here?
Boom.
Yeah, so the way I like to do it is I like to time shift it at a certain frame, which just means stopping it on that specific frame. So I'm just gonna stop it here because it makes it a lot easier to select the group that you want on a static frame compared with it moving.
Huh.
So
That's
now
interesting.
that it's here, I'm gonna create a group. Sorry, actually, I'm gonna do it from here, from the npm source. So I'm gonna create a group, set it to points, and then this group is gonna be the arm that like I select to activate at a certain frame. So I'm just gonna do by a bounding box, and I'm just gonna select the arm.
And you have to... Okay, so this is a bounding... So this is at this frame, this bounding box, at this moment in time, what is in the
Yes,
bounding box is getting selected.
yes. So this is gonna be the group that starts getting simulated. So it's just gonna be the arm here. I like using the bounding box, or you can use a bounding object because you can animate the box over time to select like the arm over time. But since this one, his arm is just flying off, you could even just like quick
Yeah,
whip select it if you wanted. But
yeah.
I'm just gonna use the bounding boxes. That's what I usually use. And I'm just gonna set this to the active group. And
This is such
from
a... This is... I
here,
love this workflow. It's so like...
yeah. And this is pretty
Just...
much the same workflow I use for Vellum, which I'll show later.
Okay.
And then from here, I'll just copy this group back to the animated version.
Group copy.
Group copy from to, and then I'm just gonna pick the active group. And then from what I found, you have to set it to overwrite most of the time, or else it won't work sometimes. I've run into a lot of issues by forgetting to select this,
Yeah.
but hopefully it
That's the
works
one that always
this
gets
time.
you.
Yeah, that's the one that
Yeah.
always gets me. Okay, so actually, I'm actually gonna go back to the active group and I'm gonna animate it to when his arm is supposed to fall off. So around frame 187.
Oh, to keep it in the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna set this over here at frame 186. And at frame 187, I'm just gonna bring it back in. And you can do this with like attribute wrangles and stuff too. You can just activate it at a certain frame.
Just keyframe it. Just keyframe it on,
Yeah.
or keyframe it active.
Or just creating like the attribute wrangle and then doing like if frame is at this frame, then this will activate. Yeah. But I'm just gonna do it this way.
How much
Okay.
ChatGPT do you use ChatGPT at all to do Vex stuff?
Sometimes. I find that it's wrong a lot of the time, so I don't use it that often, but
Yeah.
I'll have it like interpret or translate Vex codes that I find so that it helps me understand it better.
Yeah.
Explain it to me in simpler terms.
Yeah.
Okay. But now that the group copy is there, it should be working. I could check. I think. Here you go. Yeah. So it says that the active points are 5,782.
Which
that
is
should
the
be
points
working.
within the bounding box.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I'm just going to add an attribute wrangle. And for that active group, I'm going to change the pin to animation attribute from 1 to 0, which means that now they can be now they're not part of the animation. They're not pinned to the animation anymore.
So they can be free and explode off. And
yeah. So now, hopefully, if I run this, at frame 187, his arm should fall off. We'll see. Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's so Oh, that is I know it's like so basic, but it's so
Yeah.
cool.
And NPM is super fast, so
So all of those dripping pieces of alembic will have material generated from the original. It's pinned.
uh-huh.
So those biddies should be the right color.
Yeah, so they should be pretty close to the right color.
It looks so. Oh, I
Yeah,
just
so
love, man, I love Houdini. It's so fun. Look at that. It's so cool. It's been
yeah.
45 minutes. And I mean, if like after I go back and watch this video 800 times and I get your process down
Yeah.
memorized, like you could do this so quickly. And I imagine
Yeah.
you do, like, because you're not talking to me and about whatever inane question I'm asking. In like 20 minutes you can kind of have this.
Yeah. And of course you could change the resolution to be higher or whatever. But
Right.
we'll keep it
Yeah.
pretty
Let's
low
keep it.
res for now.
Let's just keep it. Sit down
Okay.
though. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
then usually I would also go in and add like a what is it? A type of force. So usually which
or
force
like
do I
animate a
usually use?
colliding sphere or something.
Yeah. To just have it pushed back.
How would you do that normally? You wouldn't use a sphere. You would use a force?
Which force do I use? Trying to think. There's like
Pop
I usually use
explode.
like a meta ball force.
Oh, interesting.
Just like a meta ball, and then you can add a force to it, and then I usually just put it like by the arm,
Oh,
and then
that's
you could go into
cool.
the, yeah, you could go into the npm solver and just use whatever force you create and put it here. We can even add like a pop force. Maybe that
Just
will
like a
work for now.
turbulence.
Yeah, and then at frame, I'll have the force be 0 on frame 186. Or actually, maybe I should have it be 0 on frame before. And then at this one, we'll have the force push back. So on the negative Z, let's just do like
Cool.
a negative, maybe 5 would be enough. Yeah. At frame 188, we'll have it go back to 0. Let's see
And do you
that.
turn off your dynamics when you're doing all this? Did you turn them off?
Yeah. So I just turn off
Yeah.
the simulation here. Or else then it
Yeah.
simulates like every time you make a change. And that's really annoying.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
know. Super
hopefully,
annoying. Yeah, and I always forget to turn it off, and then I always get too far, and I'm like, well, I've already done this many changes with it on, so I'll just keep going, and then 10 minutes later.
yeah, that didn't seem like it did much at all, actually.
It looks like it's going a little bit. It fell right down onto the leg
Yeah, I think I might
initially.
have to have the force be maybe like a little bit longer.
Mm.
Yeah, try that.
And do you have any rules about limiting yourself in terms of how long you're just messing with settings? Like, because you could do that all day
Oop,
long. Oh,
there.
cool.
Uh, I mean, once
You're
I
just
find
like, I
something,
got to get something out, so I'm done.
yeah, I
Yeah.
actually can't tell if it's even doing anything. Maybe, maybe the force is too low. Let's try
Yeah, maybe
negative.
jack that up to
Yeah, maybe
negative
like
20.
20.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a
And
lot
if
of the
you
stuff I
already,
do.
oh,
Uh-huh.
sorry, go for it.
Okay, now you can kind of see it getting blown back.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I usually prefer the Metaball Force just because it's like you can have it be like one big initial burst, which is
Yeah.
better for stuff like this. But I
Oh, and
mean,
then do
this
you
one,
keyframe it off?
yeah, and then I like keyframe it off. But this one is pretty good. You can see it gets blown back. Pretty.
That looks awesome.
Let's just sim it all the way through.
And if you were to, let's say I were to select in my bounding box the middle of the arm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, if you were to
so
select the middle of the arm, the part that you didn't select would still be animated. So it would
it
just
would
look like,
still be floating in air.
yeah,
Yeah, it wouldn't like, yeah, right.
yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking, like an active ragdoll kind of thing. It wouldn't be animating, but now on the ground.
Yeah.
it would just be stuck to the hand position where it normally should be.
Yeah.
Oh, this looks so cool. So
So
can
we'll let
we
it.
bring it back into Blender? I just want to see it with the materials.
Yeah. So I'll show you how I do it. Yeah. So that's super sick. So then my workflow from here is to use a particle fluid surface to just ping it
Okay.
back into like a mesh. There are like a lot of different ways to use to mesh it. And Houdini has like a bunch of them, but this one I just use. It's like a quick and easy one. You put the
And would you
container in.
normally do something where like you have the alembic and you are triggering because the alembic is not, or this fluid surface is not
Mhm.
at the same resolution as your initial model in terms of the quality of the polygon, or right? So basically, do you hide the initial model and turn on the alembic? And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah, because it's not exactly like the initial model, what I do is I have the initial model delete the arm at a certain point, and then
Mm,
it'll turn into this, and then you can composite that however you want. You know, you can
mm,
render out like more frames of the original arm, and then blend them together to make it look
mm.
more seamless. But yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
show how I do that in a second. So then see, so all I did there was I made sure that the npm solver was giving me the correct attributes that I want. So the ones I always want are UV and the pin to animation attribute. And then in the particle fluid surface, if you add those to the transfer attributes, now you have like a decent original UV back onto this new mesh.
Hmm.
So we
Cool.
can, here, you can even up the attribute radius.
Oh, interesting. Wow, you can really see what's going on there.
Yeah, and
I
then we
see.
could just
So, okay.
compare them.
Yeah.
So let's
And this will be
go.
different depending on the resolution of your initial particles and all that, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right. So the higher the
yeah.
particles, the more perfect it will match. Yeah.
So then,
Right.
okay, so this is the original one. Go to
Yeah.
this one, and you can see it's not perfect because of the resolution, but it's like pretty good. And then you can tweak
Yeah.
that however you want. And then after we mesh it, then it just looks like this.
Oh, yo.
And then the way I'm gonna do it is I'm just gonna delete the pin to or I'm gonna only keep the pin to animation group that has pin to animation set to 0, which is when the simulation starts. So if I delete everything else, it should only keep the arm when the simulation starts.
Huh.
So
Okay.
if I just go to blast, I
Oh, and
think
then,
it's points, and then you just go at pin to animation equals 0, I believe, and then delete non-selected, and now it only keeps like that section.
huh.
Yeah.
So
And
then you would
then
just cut off. Yeah.
yeah, and then you could use the same attributes to delete the original mesh. So if I'm just gonna copy these ones over so that I can have that group on the original one. And now the active group should be on this one too.
Well, I do not follow what you're doing, but that's because that's okay. I can go back and review it in the video on
Yeah,
demand.
yeah, I can
No, no, no,
explain it
please
real
don't
quick.
break it down. It's
Yeah,
there's gonna be so much that I can't follow.
okay. And then the active group should be on this one, and then I could just delete the active group from the original one. So let's try it. Do a blast. Active equals, or I think just the active group should work. Maybe not. Okay, there you go. So when his arm happens, then it deletes that portion. And then if
Huh.
you merge it,
Oh,
merge
wow.
these
Look at
two,
that.
then it creates like kind of like a,
Yeah.
yeah. So now you have the original mesh, and then you would just blend those two together, whether that be in compositing or however you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at this point, you're again. This is God. You can create such high quality stuff with this because you just. I mean, at this point, you're hiding the rest of the stuff that isn't perfect with the lighting and with,
Yeah,
you've got that
yeah,
motion, you've got that blast, which is
yeah,
like that's all your eye is going to be seeing, and you just hide the other stuff with compositing or with whatever is needed. Um,
yeah. So let me try to bring this back into Blender.
so
So
cool.
just with
Okay,
the,
while you're doing that, here I'm gonna do the next raffle, but
yeah.
so freaking cool. Okay, so this our next raffle, everyone is going to be for head rigs. So iOS head rig or head cam, which is our Android solution. So this is for making facial motion capture. Maybe I'll throw one on right now after this because I've got my situation going in my camera. But drum roll, please. Two people, Leah Saban and Jason Owen. Congratulations. You're getting some head cam goodies. We're gonna get in
Oh,
contact with
Leia.
you. Woo! Yahoo! And so we're giving away a pair of smart gloves after at the end of the webinar. So stick around for that again. But yeah, congratulations to you two. Yahoo! Can I do a emoji reaction? I don't know. Do I have that capability? Yes, I do. React. There we go. Fireworks. Okay. So when you're bringing this back into Blender, it's another Alembic export.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's
And
Alembic. Alembic there, Alembic back.
Alembic there, Alembic back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you explored USD at all? Are you thinking about USD at all?
I have played with USD and it's really cool. It's just that I'm not that good with it yet.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand it, but I have played with it a little bit, and it's yeah, it's pretty cool how it's able to carry everything over.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's not
now
quite
back.
baked yet for the commercial programs that aren't proprietary, whatever.
Yeah, and I think Blender still isn't
Yeah,
like fully fledged to export USD out.
that could
I
be true.
think I'm just gonna hide this. Hopefully this all works.
Okay, how much time has it been? Been an hour, and we are bringing it back into Blender. That is so crazy. Man, so awesome. Quick, you can get this all going. Was not in a suit an hour ago. I'll just call that out.
Okay, here is the original
Wow, there it is.
the arm.
And it looks actually really. Oh, right, because it's not what we're
Yeah,
seeing is not. Oh, wow.
hopefully this works as well. Nice, love it.
Oh, you're trying to
Um,
export them.
yeah. So this happens sometimes for some reason, and
Oh, maybe there's a hole or something.
yeah, there's a hole, but I swear I've solved this issue before.
Always.
Maybe I'll just export the whole thing back. But that's how I would usually do it. But I'm just gonna export this whole thing.
Yeah, you'd hunt in your Google Doc for
Yeah,
how you
maybe
fixed that issue before. Yeah, yeah,
maybe I will look at my Google Doc real quick. But yeah, for some reason, sometimes when I delete stuff in that way in Houdini and export it into Blender, Blender always crashes.
yeah.
And I feel like
Blender
I
always
solved it.
crashes.
Yeah, Blender always crashes when I bring in that one. And I feel like I solved it before, but I don't remember where I wrote it down. Yeah. Wait.
Okay. So we're gonna keep going and maybe do a little vellum after we get this back into Blender, and then kind of wrap it up with
Yeah.
some Q&A and call it, everyone. So thank you again for sticking around. I might also throw in some facial motion capture in the background just to keep things spicy. But I'm super curious to know about this vellum. And we can
Yeah.
recap the winners at the end of the webinar. I'm actually
Yeah.
getting to look at the chat a little bit.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the
So a
textures
little
are a
bit
little bit
funky.
off, but
Oh, Look at
Yeah.
that though.
And yeah, that's my workflow with NPM at least. And then,
Wow.
I would just use the original mesh here. And then for the arm, I would just, at a certain point, transition it into the NPM
Yeah.
sim.
Yeah. Super viable though. Just so quick to get a result that you could just make it look so freaking awesome. I mean, this is like, you know, you could figure out so many creative ways to deal with that UV issue, or you get deeper into UV whatever nonsense and figure
Yeah.
out even some better way to do it or something. But just like I'm just imagining like a silhouette shot, like don't need textures. There's so many different ways to get around things, and I think as an indie, which is what I consider myself too, like a generalist, like I'm always looking for clever ways to do complicated things without that are viable, right? And like this is complete, all of
Yeah.
this is viable, and it's super quick and easy, and you can iterate.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so Vellum,
Okay.
so venomy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a look at Vellum, and then we'll kind of call it. I mean, this is so effective. This is a webinar that I'm just gonna go back and rewatch immediately, and just go open up Houdini and try and see what I can break.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to bring in one of the Vellum ones now. I'll just do Vellum 1. Retargeting, same as before.
Okay, yeah. So Auto Rig Pro, and make sure to resize it because scale really matters when it comes to dynamic simulation.
Yes. And just in Auto Rig Pro, source armature, target armature, auto scale, build
And again, if
boneless.
anyone is looking for a new tutorial that covers all of this, and pre CG dives should be public now, which just released, which covers this entire workflow actually, which is good timing, which is really cool.
Okay.
Boom.
Should be
Look,
good to
retargeted.
go.
Ah, so great, so quick.
Probably have this one extend out to maybe 300 frames.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
just be one arm too, like going down.
Yeah. And I'll fix the arms a little bit, same as before.
Yeah,
The
just
arm.
no intersection.
Yeah, just have it go out. I'll just have it go out to be safe.
Okay, you know what? While you're doing that, I'm gonna put on some face capture. And I don't know how big my little avatar is for people watching live, but for the people watching streaming later, you should be able to see what I'm doing. But I'm just gonna throw on our iOS solution, which just involves, this is a head rig. So this is just a rig that is, it just holds an iPhone. So it's really agnostic in terms of what what software you're using. When I open up my iPhone, I get a little prompt in Rokoko Studio. I basically just say, hey, yes, add it to my actor here, plop my iPhone in, do another calibration, and we are done. Okay, here we go. Now I just need to position the iPhone so it's not blocking my view of the screen. Okay, so you're just exporting it out to Houdini? Yep, as an Alembic,
Yeah,
so same thing as before.
yeah, same as before.
Okay.
I also saved it to the wrong place, same as before.
Blender's kind of file navigation system I don't actually like for whatever reason.
Oh, it's a little, yeah.
It's
Not
just,
bad. You get used to it.
yeah, it's just different, like the rest of
Yeah.
Blender. It's not bad,
Yeah.
it's just different. Just gotta get used to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so brought in the Alembic, unpacked it, converted it to polygons. Looking good.
Okay, cool. And I'm just gonna, usually for like human characters, I use the Vellum tetrahedral soft body stuff. Just
Okay.
because it like creates geometry inside the model, so that it helps give it volume inside so that it doesn't collapse on itself as easily.
Okay.
Yeah, it functions more
Internal
as like,
constraints.
yeah, it functions more as like rubber, which I feel like looks closer to like human stuff. But
Right.
vellum struts is faster, and you can kind of fake it so that it looks like rubber. So I'm just gonna use vellum struts.
And you use this
And
for ragdoll essentially, right? You'll
yeah, I
just,
do use
yeah,
this really often for ragdoll.
cheap
I'm actually gonna
ragdoll.
subdivide it, add a subdivision just to give it a little bit more resolution. Because right now it's a bit low, and then when you do vellum on like something that's low resolution, then it looks, you get like the jagged edges.
Right. You'll just see all the polygon cuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is a little bit better. And I'm just gonna drop a vellum configure struts. Vellum configure strut soft body. Drop the vellum solver, see how it looks. Ground plane.
Ooh, the best
Whoa.
part where you just get to test it.
Okay, good, here you go. And let's just see how it looks. Yeah, so it just kind of looks like cloth right now. But if you go into struts and you increase this the stretch stiffness, let's try maybe like 1,000,000. Now, hopefully it behaves more like rubber. Has like a little bit more volume in it.
Wow. Golly, 1,000,000. Big number.
Yeah. So it looks a little bit better now.
It's crazy how
Look at
big
the,
and small some of the numbers in Houdini can get when you need them to do things. It's
yeah,
like 1,000,000,000. Yeah.
yeah. There's like a few weird artifacts which I think are coming from the subdivision, from the
Mm,
subdivide, but I'm just gonna leave it. Usually I would have just done the add a subdivision in here and exported it out,
yeah.
but I think it will be okay. Okay, so this is how it's looking. You know, it looks like rubber. That should work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you want to do a certain part, you would do the same bounding box type solution.
Yeah, so vellum is a little bit more difficult to do it because you actually can't animate the vellum like constraints on this sop level. You have to like go inside the solver and then do it all in a sop solver in there. So it's like a
Oh,
little bit more
wow.
complicated. Like you would think that maybe you can just animate everything out here and like create the
Yeah.
groups and all that. But yeah, it does. The vellum solver doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, but let's find the frame that we want the arm to get floppy. So maybe
Ding.
frame, yeah, maybe frame 235. And I'll just shorten the animation maybe from here. So 150. 150 and on.
Okay, let's see what we can do. Yeah.
237.
We'll see what we can do in an hour and a half total. 90 minutes.
Yeah.
90-minute bake-off. There we go.
Okay. Let's just head into this.
And then it has to like bake to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like being a little finicky.
I mean, finicky is Houdini's middle name, I feel like. I'm amazed that
Oh,
like,
it's because this frame
everything
is at
hasn't
1.
exploded.
Okay, there you go. We have to fix it. There you go. Cool. Okay, go ahead in here. I'm gonna turn off the simulation so that it's not changing everything.
Smart.
We'll add in a salt solver here, and then we're pretty much gonna do exactly what we did for the NPM stuff. So create a group. Or actually, I'm gonna create the attribute wrangle first. And these attributes are just gonna apply to the geometry as a whole. So I think the ones we need to use are eye at stop. Which pretty much just means like which points are allowed to move. And if we set it to 3, that means that none of them should be allowed to move. They can't rotate. And then also,
Why 3? Is that a value? Is that a setting or is that a value?
it's a value. So then for Vellum, the stop attribute has 4 values, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And 0 means that they're free to rotate, move however they want. And then as the numbers get higher, it starts restricting like certain rotations and stuff like that. So 3 just means they completely can't move, they can't rotate.
Huh.
But yeah, you could just go on the side
Wow.
effects. They like describe what each number
Right.
means. But yeah, and then I
Wow.
think
Cool.
I want to say it's also pinned to animation, which is the same as the NPM one. So we're gonna set that to 1. And now if we head out just to check it, that means that nothing should be simulated.
It right. It
It should
should be
just be moving.
moving.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So it's working. Okay, and I think we said frame 237.
And so if it was not set to 3, it would be falling down.
If it was set to, I think like 1, I think like parts of it would be able to move, like certain rotations and stuff like that. I mean, I guess we could test it out. Let's
Ugh.
see.
Crash.
No, I actually have no clue.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've always just done 3.
I mean, don't, if it ain't broke.
Okay, so now we got the animation working. Now we just have to activate it, and I activate it the same way I do in
Bounding
NPM.
box.
Yeah, I do a time shift. I mean, I could just time shift this first frame.
And
then
what is the time shift doing again?
It just stops it on that frame, so it's not moving. So the reason why I do the time shift is because if I didn't, then you would have the full animation, right? But when you create a bounding box, because the animation is moving, then different parts are going into that bounding box and activating, and different parts are leaving that bounding box and activating.
Right. Right.
So the group would be constantly changing. But when you time shift it and you use the bounding box, because it's time shifted on that certain frame, it's not moving, so the group will always stay the same.
Right. Right. And it's just pulling the data of where the group is. So this entire chain, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And then I copy that group back to the animated one, and it keeps that same group.
Okay.
And just just copies it over. So this one, I'm just gonna be active again, set it to points. And this time I'm just gonna select the arm.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, because we're just activating it on 1 frame anyways. Yeah. Well, actually, I'll do a bounding box because I don't want to do the.
You don't want to accidentally.
Yeah, we'll just do the bounding box. Where is the bounding box? Okay. Just because if I did just select it, then I would have to do the attribute wrangle where it's like, if frame is this, then
you would have to actually type some. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we said 237 is the frame we wanted it.
I think so.
Let's do 236. 237. Yeah.
Cool. Perfect.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. And you frame that. The active group. Cool. And then we'll just copy that back. From to groups actives. Remember to set it to overwrite. Put that back in here. Now we create another attribute wrangle that will change those attributes that we created before just for the active group. So I at stop. Now we're going to set it to 0 so that they can move again. And I change the animation to also 0 for the active group. And if we did everything correctly, it should work now.
It's always the hit play and see what setting I forgot to hit.
Yeah. Okay. Like this.
And then, yeah, if it's ever, whenever it's later in the timeline, you always have to wait.
Yeah.
I want to see it now.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, Yeah, and you could of course spend more time, fine tuning where the cut is or whatever.
Yeah, or making it more stiff or whatever you
Wow,
want.
and it's
But
even got all the fingers look good.
yep. And then at that frame, his arm
Nice.
goes limp. Yeah. And I mean, and then this one you could export straight out because it's the original mesh anyways.
Right. Right. So
So
no weird. So everything should look
yeah,
okay when you bring it back in
yeah.
theory.
Most of the time I like to do an attribute delete just to delete any of the attributes that I don't need because they do take up space.
In the export, in the Alembic,
Yeah, in the
like
Alembic.
they actually, yeah, will take up real space.
Go back.
So cool.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll
we'll save
pop
it
it
out.
back into Blender.
Hide these ones. Sim, Vellum sim. Let's make sure it's all working. Goes.
Oh,
Let's just give it the original body back.
oh wow, and yeah, it looks good.
Yep.
Looks wow. So that one is like
Yep.
really not a lot is needed to make this look
Yeah.
perfectly fine. I mean, that looks great.
Yep. And then his arm gets loose. And then, this is the same way I would do it for my own VFX stuff. I would just create a mask where this happens
Right.
and then transition it at a certain point. But yeah, super easy. You could also, activate the group over time so his arm slowly gets rubbery. Yeah, you can
Oh,
do a lot of stuff with it. Super cool.
so cool and so simple to get going and just in and out. And again, okay, yeah, and I will just call out, it's been an hour and 17 minutes since I got in the suit, and we were able to record mocap 4 takes, then send it over to another person in another location. And then Alan retargeted it and got it into Houdini and got 2 different looks out of it back into Blender. Yes.
Yeah.
HDRI. Yeah, looking that's so great, so incredible. I mean, Jesus, to think about doing this 10 years ago, it's just like absolutely. I mean, the things that you can do now, it is bananas. Um, Final
Yeah.
render out of Blender. Yeah, and then the final render would be out of Blender, right? Everything is in Blender for
Yeah.
at this point. Yeah, for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I render if I'm doing like volumes like pyro and stuff like that, then
Oh,
I I do it out of Houdini
in
just
Mantra,
because yeah, in
in
Karma
Karma,
GPU.
rather.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny how everyone makes their cyclos different for everyone. Oh, it looks great. Boom. You got your little social asset. Keep moving. Keep cruising.
Yep. Yeah. Super easy. I love it. I love this
Oh,
workflow. I use it so often. Mocap and then, straight into Blender, straight into Houdini and then back out.
and
It's
then
so much
just yeah,
fun.
just play. Except playing for settings for like 4 hours is the part that we didn't
Yeah.
see. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
over and over again.
Usually the simulations take like a few hours or Vellum is pretty quick. Vellum and NPM is pretty quick, so they actually don't take that long. But if I'm doing
Huh?
like fluid sims and stuff, it takes a while.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, this was so cool. Well, let's do the last raffle and then answer a couple questions that I've been seeing pop up. And yeah, so raffle wise, thanks for sticking around, everyone. So this is for a pair of smart gloves, baby. Which are mocap agnostic, actually. So you don't need to use them with Rokoko. They do work natively with Rokoko. But okay. Let's look at what do I got here. Okay, drum roll, please. Andrew Baker. Congratulations, Andrew. You are getting a pair of smart gloves coming your way. So we'll be reaching out over email. But yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. This is so great. And yeah, I think, and Alan, if you're down to take a couple of questions.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
yeah, so I saw one that was basically um, like advice for someone as an indie creator working for sponsorships and stuff like that. Um,
Hmm.
what advice would you have for that person?
Yeah, if you're specifically working for sponsorships and like brand deals and stuff,
Yeah.
one of the things that brands look for is when they watch your stuff, they want to see how they can incorporate their product into whatever you're making. So like if a lot of the viral product stuff that's been going around is, like big perfume on a truck or stuff like that.
Right.
But if you're doing like my type of stuff, they want to watch it and be like, oh, like maybe instead of him doing this sim with like Cheetos or something, he could be doing it with Lay's chips or with chocolate chip
Right.
cookies or something like that. They just want to be able to see how they can fit into your content. And if your content allows for lots of brands to be like, oh, we could totally fit his content around our product, then a lot more brands will come. Yeah.
That's such a good tip. And so is that something that someone could probably like, if you're looking for clients, putting
Hmm.
out, just working on personal stuff that fits into that, that is like
Yeah.
product focused or playing or dynamics with a product that could be swapped out into something else.
Yeah. If you're reaching out to people, then having content that that specifically they can see themselves in, like, oh, you did this liquid sim that would be perfect for, I don't know, like this sports drink or something like that. Yeah, doing content that you feel, if you want to get into a specific category of brands that you want, then doing content that they can see themselves fit in specifically, like, helps a lot. And you could show it to them and be like, hey, like, I could be doing this with your product. Yeah.
Hmm. That's so good. That's such actionable advice. I feel like a lot of people, the advice that you get is not like, that's something that somebody could take right now and go like put that into practice. That's really good.
Yeah.
Um, so another one that I saw that I will kind of interpret, but it was about have you used mocap on commercial projects, which I know you have. Um,
Uh-huh.
but what is something to watch out for, maybe when you're using mocap, like as an indie, for in commercial, situations?
Yeah. So the main thing is, what I've noticed from commercial situations is that you have to really get in there and clean up your mocap so that it doesn't look like any janky portions. Like, you really need to clean those out. So you need to put a lot more love and care if it's like a commercial product. But I mean, it still saves you so much time.
Yeah, yeah, just the mocap, the initial
Yeah. Yeah.
investment. You're right.
Yeah. If you look at my branded stuff that I've done for social media, for like my own social media, I've used the Rokoko mocap suit a lot. Like, a lot of those projects, I would not have even pitched it to the brand if I didn't have the suit.
Yeah. And were all those workflows similar to what we looked at today?
Yeah,
Was like
this is the workflow that I pretty much use for all my projects. Yeah.
sick. So it's just so it's so iterative. It's so like it's so agile. It's like a very agile. It's just it and again, I feel like it was just importing and exporting from Blender to Houdini like 5 years ago was such a nightmare. And it's so nice that it can be again done in like, a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. No, it's cool.
Um, so this yeah, I saw one that was about Unreal. And like, do you think about switching to Unreal? Again, I'll interpret that, but like, why do you like Blender? Why do you like Blender? Why might somebody use Houdini? Like you've
Uh-huh.
chosen to kind of specialize in?
I mean, just for me, I feel like Blender is better at doing like live action visual effects than Unreal. I feel like I don't see a lot of people, unless it's virtual production, doing
Hmm.
like visual effects for live action stuff in Unreal. Like, I rarely ever see that. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like you can, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's maybe as good as Blender now, or it still might not be as good, but I just know Blender better. And for what I do, Unreal isn't as useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, Houdini is a dynamics machine. I mean, that is
Yes. So Houdini just works, like all these 3D programs. You could use whichever one you want. They all work together. You could bring Houdini stuff into Unreal. You could bring it into Cinema 4D. You could export from Blender into Unreal. Everything just kind of works together. It's just for
Yeah.
me, for what I do, Blender is enough.
That's so true about integrating into live action. I mean, we see like Unreal, and Unreal gets so much. I feel like nowadays it's Unreal and Blender. They are the stars of the show at this point. Like that's what everybody is paying attention to. It feels like maybe I'm in a bubble, but that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
And
I
you
mean, they
see a
just
lot of
really easily,
Unreal
yeah,
being used in live action environments, but it's always virtual production backgrounds. Like
yeah,
you see sets and Unreal like in the same Instagram reel a lot, but it's always for virtual production backgrounds, as
yeah,
opposed to you have a cape on a guy, or you have, a Fu Manchu, like, hair coming out, and like all these sort of,
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't really work into Unreal's very specific skill set. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, last time I checked, Unreal doesn't have a very fleshed out like AOV system where it can render out like all these different render passes. At least last time I checked, maybe that has changed.
It
But
does, but it's just super finicky. I mean, it's
okay.
just a nightmare. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to get. Yeah, it's just every program has its ups and downs, and so choose the one
Yeah.
that works for you, and don't get hung up on what the hot program is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we've taken up a lot of your time. The last question I'll just ask, which wasn't one that I saw, but just is one that I think is a good one, is just if you were to go back and talk to yourself when you were starting out in VFX, like, what is the paragraph, you would say to that person?
Oh, if I was just starting out, I mean, I would just tell them if they enjoy doing it to just keep doing it. Because that's what I
Yeah.
was doing. Like I just really enjoyed doing it. And then that led me to like diving into different holes for things like Houdini, Mocap, Marvelous Designer. It just led me to like a bunch of different things because I really enjoyed it. So if you really enjoy it, just keep doing it. People will notice eventually that you're passionate about it if you are. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Yeah. I mean, and be careful of like burnout. If you love it,
Yeah.
it can be, I don't know if you've dealt with that at all, but it's hard that having your job be what your hobby is can be tough. And so just
Yeah.
taking time, not taking it, not, I don't
Yeah.
know, not beating yourself up about it, and remembering that it's
Yeah.
art. And yeah, I don't know. There's something
Yeah.
in there.
But the cool thing about visual effects and stuff like this, like animation, is there's so many different categories within it that you can learn about. So if you get bored of like one aspect, there's probably like another aspect of it that you can dive into, and it'll be completely different, completely new, but then you'll be able to apply it back to what you already knew before. Like whether that's character animation or simulations or, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many things.
It is very cumulative, the knowledge. Yeah, that's true. And so
Yeah.
open up Houdini for the first time and play around and see what translates, and yeah, yeah, yeah. Do something
Yeah.
new. Cool, man. Well, this was awesome again. Thank you so much for coming. Before we end it, I will just give out the final call outs. We have this indie bundle. Go check it out. 40% off with the discount from today, 45% off. So if you're curious about Rokoko, you want to dive in, now's the time to do it. Book a free demo. We will have links to this, but this is an incredible thing that we offer. Live human being who will talk to you about your workflow specifically. It's a great thing if you are curious about Rokoko. So please go book a free demo. And yeah, and then beyond that, just yeah, thank you again, Alan, man. This was super fun, and we'll have to. It was fun to do one where like we got to work on something together, and let me just see the time. Okay, exactly an hour and 29 minutes since I started the thing, so 90 minutes. But yeah, this was great. Thank you very much, man. It was super cool to see your workflow.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm always super honored when you guys have me on for this stuff. It
Yeah,
means a lot.
yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, we just want to highlight good Rokoko creators. And if you don't follow Alan yet, it's Alain Bui, Alain Bui, on Instagram, on YouTube. Go Google him, and we'll have all the stuff coming in the email as well. And with that, we're gonna call it. Everyone have a good weekend. Tune in for
Yeah.
our next webinar. Yeah, Alan.
Yeah,
Have a
thank
good
you
one, man.
everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you all learned something or picked up on something. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me on social media if you have any more questions. More than happy
More than
to
happy.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah. to answer the non-confusing Houdini
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Which no one will have any questions about. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay. Bye, all.